सबसे पहले मैं आज के प्रथम वक्ता श्री राजीव मल्होत्रा जी का परिचय करवाऊंगा। ऐसे उनके श्री राजीव मल्होत्रा जी एक नीतिगत सलाहकार, वाणिज्य प्रबंधक, सफल उद्यमी रहे हैं। उन्होंने 1994 में इन्फिनिटी फाउंडेशन की स्थापना की। उनके बहुत से पुस्तक हिंदी में भी अनुवादित हुए हैं। जो प्रमुख पुस्तकें हैं एकेडमिक हिंदूफोबिया, द बैटल ऑफ फॉर संस्कृत, बीइंग डिफरेंट, एन इंडियन चैलेंज टू वेस्टर्न यूनिवर्सलिज्म, ये उनकी लिखी कुछ प्रमुख पुस्तकें हैं। वो प्रसिद्ध शोधकर्ता हैं, आप लेखक, वक्ता, प्रमुख बुद्धिजीवी हैं और आपके YouTube पे 400 से अधिक ऑडियो वीडियो अवेलेबल भी है। मैं राजीव मल्होत्रा जी को प्रार्थना करूंगा कि ते अपना वक्तव्य रखें।
धन्यवाद। जो डीकॉलोनाइजिंग का टॉपिक है, तो टॉपिक से पता चलता है कि कॉलोनाइजिंग एक बीमारी है जिससे हमने छूटना है। डीकॉलोनाइजिंग, किसी चीज़ को हम छोड़ना चाहते हैं। तो वो क्या चीज़ है, कॉलोनाइजिंग क्या चीज़ है जिसको हम छोड़ना चाहते हैं? अब देखिए, यदि आपको कोई वायरस हुआ है तो डॉक्टर को पहले पहचान होनी चाहिए कि किस तरह का वायरस है। वो ये नहीं कह सकता सब वायरस सेम है, वो नालायक डॉक्टर होगा। यदि किसी को कैंसर की बीमारी है, डॉक्टर कैन नॉट से ऑल कैंसर इज सेम, ही हैज़ टू फाइंड आउट विच काइंड। तो कॉलोनाइजेशन भी कई प्रकार के हैं। कॉलोनाइजेशन इज नॉट वन थिंग, देयर आर मेनी काइंड्स ऑफ कॉलोनाइजेशन। Unless you recognize and diagnose the disease accurately, you cannot solve it. This is one of the big problems. So many people are talking about decolonizing, but have not done enough Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha means कि जो opposing side है, उसकी पहचान होनी चाहिए, पूछताछ होनी चाहिए, उसके साथ डिबेट करनी चाहिए, उसके मैदान में जाकर लड़ना चाहिए उसके साथ। You have to go into the Kurukshetra where the other side is, in their home turf, and fight. Unless you have encounter with them, you don't get to know them. घर बैठकर, देखकर, विचार करके, like-minded people से चाय वाय पीकर, समोसे खाकर, एक दूसरे को भाषण देकर, you don't understand the other side. Fine. You have to. A good cricket team has to go fight test matches. You can't just sit around and watch on the TV and say, Tendulkar ne bahut century bana di, we are happy. You have to do your work. So this requires our scholars to understand the different kinds of colonization and know the difference between one and the other. This has not been done properly. In fact, there is not a single book on the history of Indology. And I'll tell you in a moment why that is important. Indology is the vichar, the discourse of the colonizer. And that is how colonization became successful, because they were also scholars. They were studying us. They were building their own shastra about us. So I call this Videshi Indology, because this Indology, the study of India, has been controlled from outside, and not Swadeshi Indology, which is our vichar. That has not been controlling. The Swadeshi Indology has not taken control of the forums and the discourse, the journals and all that, the media and so on. It is the Videshi Indology which has been doing it. So this is the topic I'm going to talk about. The question, why is Indology important? Lot of people say ये बहुत intellectual बात है, why should we worry about it? हमारे दिल में सच है, it's a way of life, why should we worry what they are saying? You know, we are suffering from the Aryan-Dravidian divide in this country. It is a product of Western Indologists. Aryan-Dravidian divide was not something made in India. It is made in the Europe in the 1800s, and 150 years later we are suffering. So this means you cannot ignore Indology. The Dalit movement, Ambedkar got his PhD in Columbia University, came back and formulated these things. And later, the subaltern scholars, again Western imported ideology, they came up with Dalit movement, feminism, minorities. These are all imported ideologies. The theory how to do it is imported, then it is applied into India. But the theory is imported. विचार जो है, सिद्धांत है, वो विदेशी है और उसको भारत में आके उसका अनुवाद किया है, उसको implement किया है, उसको India is an example how to implement these ideas. Even modern caste system, Lord Risley brought this idea of organizing the jatis and varna into caste. Varna we had, jati we had. Caste we did not have. It's a different idea. So you see, when people tell me, why are you studying Indologies, who cares, how does it matter? It matters. A lot of the problems we are having in this country are because of that. Now, we should also understand what is colonization and how colonization is different from oppression. If somebody oppresses you, you are not colonized until you accept his vichar about you. If somebody is hating me, doing whatever to me, but I don't buy it, I resist. Even if I'm beaten up, but I just don't accept it. I'm not colonized. I become colonized when I accept the narrative of the colonizer. So it is like an app. You download this app. They are trying to force this app. But I have to push the button, I agree. When you're installing an app, you have to push a button saying, I agree, and then it gets installed. So all of us colonized people, for historical reasons, are voluntarily colonized. So decolonizing me is something to be done for Indians. We have to critique those who are colonizing us, so we know how to talk back. We know how to become self-conscious कि ये मेरी habit है, ये मेरा ढंग है, ये मेरे विचार हैं, ये colonizer से आए हैं. So I should become self-conscious, then I can start removing these things. Ultimate job is with the Indians only. Now I studied many civilizations, how they are represented. I found that Chinese studies, the study of China, is mostly controlled by Chinese people. In Mandarin, they have all the prestigious journals. Most of the conferences are in China, on China studies. Most of the top scholars are Chinese. When Americans are China studies people, they're always begging them for visa, permission to go there and study. China says, we'll allow you, we don't allow this guy, he's no good. It is also required when you get visa to study China. One of the requirements is that they'll always have their own tourist guide and interpreter with you, who's actually kind of a spy, he'll keep an eye on you. And it is required that whatever findings you have, a copy has to be deposited there. So at least they know kya likha aapne. There is no such requirement in India. Anybody come, do whatever you want, you don't know what he did, he is not required. We don't even have a mechanism to filter, to decide who's good, who's not good. We don't have a database of who's doing what in Indology. Until 10 years ago, I used to keep my own database, but I don't have resource to keep doing this. I had a database of people in the West who study India. History, philosophy, religion, anthropology, sociology, political science, all of that. And this database at that time had over 2,000 people, full-time. This is not hobby-type people or some casual blogger, but people whose full-time job as a scholar is to study India, 2,000 people. So it's a bit of an industry. So this industry we have to analyze, why are these people studying, who funds them, what do they study, what is their conclusion, what is good or bad, how does it affect us? Nobody here has bothered to do all this. So we have abandoned this field of Indology. It is being studied by others, and we are not even monitoring them. China does an annual report on the state of China studies in the world. So they know who's doing what is going on, surveillance of China studies. We should have an annual report surveillance on international study of India. Who's doing what like that? We should have it, but we don't. Same thing what I said about China is true of Russia, Japan. Various large civilizations are very concerned about controlling their own narrative and their own discourse. We unfortunately haven't been able to do that or haven't tried to do that. Another point I want to make is our definition of colonization is too limited. We do not think of Mughals as colonizers. Why? We think only British colonized us. Mughals also colonized us. It is just that Mughal colonization was at the level of culture, popular culture. So, जो दिल्ली में हिंदी बोलते हैं, it is lot of it is Urdu. When I went to Turkey for a holiday, I found a lot of words we are using are Turkish, like Dunya Bank. So I asked the guy, Dunya kya hai? He said, Dunya means world. We think it is Hindi, but Turkish. So there's a lot of this Islamic influence which just become part of our lifestyle. And we did not think of it as colonization because they did not have an official branch of study, academic study called Indology. So there's no books on there which are about us. There is no Mughal Indology of India. Like there is a British Indology, German Indology, French Indology, now American. So the absence of a formal body of texts led us to the misimpression, false impression that, they're not really colonizing us because they did not write text about us. But Mughal colonization is a very serious colonization, and when we talk of decolonizing, we should also talk about that. Now, the British, the colonial era before independence is a very long story of colonization. I've started writing a book. It's already 2-3 volumes, and I don't know if I'll get to finish it. But, there's so many different periods with different type of doctrines and ideologies under this overall Indology. That's a very big project, and I'd love to maybe somebody join me and then we can finish it because it's just too much, and I have too many other things also on parallel. But let me talk about after independence. We are not decolonized, that's why we are talking about the subject. After independence, we're still colonized, and the Indology is now in 5th stage, stage 5, or let's say 5th wave after independence. First, Marxism. Marxism, this CPI, CPM, Kanu Sanyal, Charu Majumdar, these big characters, when I was in St. Stephen's College, they were famous people, the big Marxists, Naxalites and all that. That was one imported, I will show you all 5 of these are imported ideology. And the purpose of that was to start a revolution in India, start a Marxist revolution in India. This changed when Edward Said wrote his famous book, Orientalism, in the 70s. And this launched wave 2, the second wave called post-colonial studies. Indians took Marxist foundation and started criticizing the colonizer. So the first decolonizing effort already started with the left. Leftists started the decolonizing. Okay, so don't think we are starting it. Leftists started it. But जो लेफ्टिस्ट डीकॉलोनाइज कर रहे थे वो अपने विचार मार्क्सिस्ट विचार से डीकॉलोनाइज कर रहे थे, वैदिक विचार से नहीं कर रहे थे, धार्मिक विचार से नहीं कर रहे थे. तो वो वेस्ट ने उनको मेथोडोलॉजी सिखाई कि किस मेथोडोलॉजी से वेस्ट को क्रिटिसाइज किया जाए. ये बात है. मतलब आप हमको क्रिटिसाइज करना चाहते हैं तो हम आपको सिखाएंगे कैसे करना चाहिए. आप हमारे स्टूडेंट हो, आप ही को हम सिखाएंगे. सो दिस पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टडीज़ is a Western theory on how to criticize the colonizer. And our people became very famous. So all this Romila Thapar, all these kind of people, they are in that period. And they are not Swadeshi Indologists, they may be Indians ethnically living in India, but people like Romila Thapar are Videshi Indologists because their thinking and their vichar is a Videshi mindset. Then the third wave is subaltern studies. People, subaltern studies means you study history from below, people who are not dominant. This also started in Europe. Revolt against European colonizers. The European leftists came up with this idea that we should rewrite the history of the various countries from below, meaning you subvert the colonizer. You subvert the French colonizer, you subvert the various kinds of colonizers. But in India, subaltern studies took a new meaning. Subaltern studies, rather than doing post-colonial work criticizing the colonizer, became a criticism of the Indian nation. So now, instead of post-colonial work, which was leftist, Marxist idea criticizing colonizer, now it was leftist, Marxist idea taking the view from the Dalit, from the Muslim, from the women, the underclass so-called, the subaltern so-called, taking their view against India as a nation. India is the oppressor. So now India became the oppressor rather than the colonizer. This is subaltern studies. Subaltern studies is a dramatic shift. It is wave 3. So wave 1 is Marxism after independence. Wave 2 is post-colonial studies, gazing at the colonizer. Wave 3 is attacking our own nation from below. And Indira Gandhi encouraged it because it was vote banking. It was friendly towards vote banking. आप कहें ये तो वेस्ट की बड़ी लेटेस्ट चीज़ आई है. Ford Foundation funding this all the time, funding it like crazy because they wanted to offset our affinity towards Soviet Union by countering it, by breaking us up and by putting all the pressure. And Indira Gandhi fell for it thinking that this is encouraging vote banks कि हर एक वोट बैंक की अपनी हिस्ट्री होनी चाहिए. उनको कहो तुम अलग अलग लोग हो, इंडिया ने तुमको गुलाम रखा हुआ है, स्लेव बनाया हुआ है. So this is post-colonial studies. This is wave 3. Wave 4 is postmodernism. Postmodernism is that there is no grand narrative. It is just a lot of little narratives, fragmentation. So my book, Breaking India, talks about what postmodernism does if you just continue with it. And now there is a wave 5, neocolonialism. Neocolonialism. It is led by the Sheldon Pollock School, and my book, Battle for Sanskrit, talks about it. And the reason it's dangerous is that they are so sophisticated in this Videshi Indology, disguised as friendly to us. Ravan also comes as a sadhu sometimes. So this can happen. And they almost took over Sringeri Mutt, almost, just on the eve of when I intervened. And Murthy funded 500 volumes will be translated, 500 volumes of our old Shastras will be translated by these people now. And they're getting awards and whatnot. So the problem of these 5 waves is very serious. Now, I have a lot to talk about, but I'm told I have little time. So I'll quickly, I don't know, I'll just say the following. This disease has now infected all major organs of the body. Academics, schools, government, political, civic groups, media, think tanks, NGOs, a confused majority. Maybe 25% of Indians are very solid, secure, intellectually grounded, Vedic Hindu people. And maybe 25% are very anti-Hindu already, sold to another point of view. The middle 50% is confused. That is the opportunity. Opportunity is not to talk to like-minded people. Opportunity is to talk to the 50% who are vacillating, oscillating, confused, this and that. That is the opportunity. That is where we have to focus. The immune system, which is supposed to protect the body, is already very weak. It has not done its job. We don't like to hear it because we like good news. We are doing very well. Everybody is happy. Things are going well. But things are not going well. In the morning, we heard that ours is the great civilization which nobody has been able to destroy. My view is, if you look at where we were, from Tibet to Sri Lanka, from Afghanistan to Bali, you look at that map, today it is 20% of that area. So if you shrink 80%, but you're not yet dead, your company's sales are down 80%, but you're not yet bankrupt, you can hardly stand up and say, sir, we are doing very well, sir, we are still eating dal roti. So we should not have a benchmark of defeated people कि जब तक हम जिंदा हैं तो हम जीत रहे हैं. You can't do like that. You have to have a winner attitude, saying, why aren't we? See, the biggest market share belongs to two religions which did not exist until 4th century. Christianity was invented not by Jesus, but 4th century. Emperor Constantine invented it. And then a couple, 3 centuries later came Islam. So these things were not even there until recently. Today they have more than half the world. So they are expanding market share. We have shrunk market share. How can you convince me we're doing fine? Okay. So I have done a lot of diagnosis on what is the matter with us, because the decolonization starts with us. What is the matter with us? Why aren't we, what will it take? What are the plans? And my foundation has been working on this to whatever extent we can ourselves. And we've started a Swadeshi Indology movement. We are creating 108 top grade scholars who will be Swadeshi Indologists, young, who will take these ideas and develop more and take back the territory by intellectual combating. And we've trained quite a few, and we are having our first conference, Swadeshi Indology, was in IIT Chennai in July. Second one will be in February, this coming February. So we are going to keep creating our, what we call, home team of intellectual Kshatriyas. And you cannot be an intellectual Kshatriya unless you go to the battlefield and fight. You cannot just sit at home and say, हम ताली बजाएंगे, पकौड़े खाएंगे और खूब खुश हो जाएंगे, feel good होगा. आप सर, आप काम कीजिए, हम ताली बजा के आपको खूब support करेंगे. That is not what it takes. You have to become a khiladi. You have to come into the Kurukshetra and face the opponent. So we are giving that kind of point of view to our people. Now, I will close with just a short thing. People who are interested in joining this Swadeshi Indology movement, we see it as a collective yagna for all of us. There are 4 tracks, track A, track B, track C, track D. Different kind of people can join. Track A is original research, heavy-hitting, game-changing, big books, something that can withstand all the criticism that we'll get, something which is an attack product against some particular school of thought of the opposing side. That is track A. Very few people will do that. Track B is to build a parampara based on this A idea, the ideas in A. We build a parampara of young new scholars, and they take it further as their own research. So the way we are building this parampara is we have a team leader, a mentor, who's senior person, and there are 5 or more junior scholars assigned to that team, and we give them stipends, and we give them a particular problem area that this is the special, you will be the subject matter expert on this, and another group will be subject matter expert on that. So you will become our team for this particular specialized role. Then there is track C. We are taking all this knowledge to the popular level educationally. We are doing development of online courses on all the things that we have been working on for these 25 years, videos, and so that anyone can sign up and do online lessons on his mobile and learn what we are doing. He will not become a scholar, but he'll become a consumer of scholarship, and he'll become part of the team as a consumer of this new kind of idea. And then track D is social media, popular culture, spreading it to the masses very informally in different ways. So these are 4 ways people can get involved. I want to say that I'm doing a more detailed lecture on the same topic on 20th November in IGNCA Delhi, where I have more time. The whole evening is just my program. So I'll go into a lot of detail, more detail than this, and then we'll keep developing it further after that. Every so often we'll have more and more programs to explain to you the Swadeshi Indology movement. Thank you very much.